We're here at Tell Me for syndicatednews.net, and today we have Jimmy Church from the JimmyChurchRadio.com program. Jimmy, are you with us?
I am here, Ruthie. How are you?
Jimmy, about this Sandusky tragedy, why do you think Ray Gricar was lost, I guess, in 2005? He's the original district attorney who actually investigated and questioned Sandusky in 1998. Tell us what you think about that.
Well, first off, the facts of the case, when you look at it, he was the original Center County DA that was investigating Ray Sandusky in 1998. And he confronted Sandusky with an original set of charges that involved victim number 6 that was handed down in the indictment earlier this week from the grand jury. And in normal cases, it would be hard to tie the two of these together, except for he is now missing and his body has never been found. He disappeared in 2005. And his death wasn't declared a death until July of this year. But to tie the two together is impossible because nobody can speak with Ray Gricar now. He's dead. He's missing. And what he possibly knew and what he either had on his computer, which his hard drives were erased that they found later, no matter what we speculate now, we cannot directly talk to him. And that's where the cases are tied together.
Now, Jimmy, what about Roy Gricar?
Well, what do
you think about that?
Yeah, that's where the case takes another interesting twist. And you couldn't write a script in Hollywood that would be this twisted. But his brother Roy, 2 years prior to Ray disappearing, his brother committed suicide, in an apparent suicide, in the very same location. In another river that was adjacent to where Ray Gricar's car and computer were found. Remember, his body was never found. But, that is just another strange twist to the case. And can you tie all of these together? Well, the way that this case is unfolding now, where you have a guy like Jerry Sandusky, who, by all apparent evidence, was investigated multiple times and accused multiple times by law enforcement and detectives, but charges were never brought forward. It is just how this man was able to escape justice for so many years at every single level, whether it's co-workers, whether it's the janitorial staff, eyewitnesses, the detectives, the Center County DA's office. Nobody pressed charges and allowed him, and nobody accused, everybody just allowed him to continue with, and I don't want to use this kind of language, but, child molestation and the raping of innocent children.
It's okay to say sodomy. That's a term for the activity.
Well, this week was one of the, with my radio show, we like to have fun. We like to, get serious. But this week, the subject matter has been so dark and so mentally taxing on myself. We have followed this case all week. We broke the case, as you know, last Friday, 3 days before CNN and ESPN and all of the other major media outlets decided to pick up the story. We weren't the first, but we were the first to bring it to YouTube. And so since then, I have me and my staff here, Charlie and Hilton and my wife, Rita, we have all diligently pursued this, and it is mentally taxing when you deal with this subject matter all day long.
Now, Jimmy, why do you think Mike McQueary was given a job at the university when he's been idle for 9 years? Well, see,
that's another situation, Ruthie, where this case just doesn't make any sense. And for Mike McQueary, he chose to do the wrong thing about 4 or 5 spots right in a row in his life in dealing with this case. One of them, the first thing was he called his father instead of calling the police. And why he chose to do that at that moment, because anybody else that would have seen a crime like this being committed, obviously this is one of the darkest crimes that a human being can commit, probably worse than murder. when you're dealing with an innocent child, because murder is final. Somebody's dead, but that child has to live with this for the rest of their lives. Well, he chose not to go to the police. That's the first thing. The second thing, he at the beginning of everything in 2002, he was just a grad assistant, and suddenly he's an assistant coach. Then he's the wide receivers coach. He's got an office on campus. Then he's the lead recruiter for the university. And he's got all of these positions at the university. Meanwhile, he deals with Jerry Sandusky all day long. He sees Jerry. He parks next to him in the parking lot. He obviously has to say hi to him. Did he interact with Mr. Sandusky in his day-to-day obligations as his job as the recruiter at the school? Why did he choose to ignore everything? And the only way that I can piece all of this together is he was given a job to stay quiet, and he didn't want to lose that job, and he wanted to keep that job and keep his lifestyle together, as was any other administrator that has been since dismissed, Tim Curley and Gary Schultz and so forth.
Now, we're looking at 4 investigations since the 90s, mid-90s.
Yep.
They had either investigations or inquiries. Serious.
Yes, eyewitness testimony type of investigations, accusations, absolutely.
But no charges.
No charges.
All this time, no charges until now. Do you think, is it a possibility that now this investigation and the grand jury indictment come in after Joe Paterno breaks his all-time record? Do you think there's a tie-in there, or is it just coincidence also?
With everything else in this case, Ruthie, like I have stated, and that deals with Ray Gricar and Mike McQueary and Tim Curley's silence and Gary Schultz, nobody going to the police, and that includes Joe Paterno, too, himself, and Graham Spanier, the president of the university. Everything doesn't make sense. None of it. It's just crazy, but it's all tied together. It all centers around one guy, Jerry Sandusky, and Joe Paterno, and the Penn State football program. And for the grand jury investigation took 3 years. And I am just a sensible guy, and I will call it out very loudly, which is very simple. Why didn't the investigation by the grand jury end 12 months, or 2 years, 12 months, instead of 3 years? Why couldn't they have resolved things a month earlier before Joe Paterno breaks his record? Why did it take 3 years for this investigation? Why couldn't they wrap it up in 11 months? A year. But it all, a week after he breaks the D1A all-time division record, suddenly everything comes to light. It just doesn't make sense. And that includes Mike McQueary, who stayed silent for 9 years, and suddenly he goes and talks after the Division I record is broken. And I'm sorry about, when you call things a conspiracy, this is exactly what conspiracy theorists out there are afraid of. And they're the ones that are going to stand up right now and go, see, I told you. And that's how I feel. Right now, the facts are the facts in the case, where you can't draw any other conclusion but that. It was an immense cover-up, a conspiracy by multiple people at the state level, all the way across. It just doesn't make sense unless you look at it that way. Ray Gricar's disappearance, Mike McQuarrie's silence, the district attorney not bringing charges when he could have, the detectives that knew something that told Sandusky, hey, just stay away from children. It'll be okay. It just doesn't make any sense, except for it's one big conspiracy.
Roy Gricar, suicide. I'm wondering now if that was a suicide.
Well, I have to say, as we start to see the people that are involved, and I don't want to go as far as, and I'm not going to make accusations. I'm not, unless they are factually based. But if we start dealing with donors and money and people of political power that are dealing with this child, the charity, the Second Mile, if that's indeed what all of this is about, I wouldn't doubt that Roy Gricar and Ray Gricar were silenced because of what they knew. And that's it. I'm not going to say that these are factually based, but when you look at everything over the last 10 to 15 years, it just looks like the craziest story you've ever heard. Maybe the biggest news story of this century.
Amazing. I can't thank you enough. That's Jimmy Church from jimmychurchradio.com here at syndicatednews.net for Tell Me.
Thank you, Ruthie.